There's a week every year where the games industry collectively loses its mind. Publishers, every developer, stacking announcements on top of announcements, dropping trailers like they're going out of fashion. And look, a lot of it melts together. There's only so many high fantasy action RPGs a person can absorb in one sitting before they all start to look the same. This year was different though. Something shifted. It's been a long time since a week of video showcases got me feeling this positive about the next year of gaming. There were an astonishing number of things that genuinely cut through and stood out, made me stop, made me think. So I want to talk about them. This isn't a list or ranking, it's just the stuff that, in a sea of noise, actually mattered to me. The good, and maybe a bit of the not so good. But in a few short words, Jeff done good here. Quick warning before we start. My backlog has been an absolute mess this year. Everything that's gone on, new dad, no time, all of that. The last few months had finally started to crawling back through it. And then this week happens, and it's as bad as ever. I love God of War 2018 more than I probably should. The relationship between Kratos and Atreus, a man trying to heal from his past, and a boy trying to find his way in the world, both processing grief in completely different ways, learning to lean on each other when neither of them is built for it. It all just landed for me in a way that very few games do. Ragnarok, in contrast, almost felt like it was rushing every moment. Like it couldn't sit still long enough to breathe. 2018 had this quiet to it that Ragnarok just never quite found. And I've always felt that was its biggest weakness. So, God of War Laufey. Gameplay looks brilliant. Faye as the protagonist brings a completely different energy. She's more agile, versatile, more acrobatic than Kratos ever was. From a pure mechanical standpoint, watching her move and jump about is already a breath of fresh air compared to the big fella lumbering about with his axe. But I do have a grave concern. No, it's not what you're thinking. God of War 2018 and Ragnarok are fundamentally stories about loss. About how Kratos carries the weight of Faye. How much she made him want to be better. How profoundly her absence shaped every single decision he made across both games. That grief was the emotional core of everything that went on. But here now we see Faye active beyond death, fighting her way for an afterlife spanning multiple pantheons. It doesn't ruin anything automatic. You know what? It does. It does change everything automatically. It drastically changes the framing of Kratos and Atreus' journey, given how close to perfection it was. It ruins the last two games retroactively on an emotional level. The grief doesn't just disappear because Santa Monica explains it well. It retroactively changes what that grief meant for Kratos. And yes, this does allow us to see what Faye was doing that assisted Kratos and Atreus on their journey through her adventures in the Everywhen. But I do fear that on replays of 2018, it just won't feel the same, knowing that she is out there in some way. The finality of her passing now just doesn't mean as much. I'm not writing the game off. It could absolutely land that explanation in a way that recontextualizes it all perfectly. But right now, I just can't let go of it. Kratos burned her body. He carried that loss through two whole games. It shaped every single decision he made. And now, oi QB, the God of War just burned me corpse and is raising me bloody son. Womp womp. Fumito Ueda makes games like nobody else on the planet. Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, The Last Guardian, every single one of them has this quality of quietness that is almost impossible to describe. They're not games you play so much as worlds you exist in for a while, and then they end, and you feel the absence. It's been ages since I last gave them a go, long enough that they've softened into impressions rather than memories, and that's exactly the kind of thing it nags at you. You don't half remember one of Ueda's games. You go back and you sit with it properly. And so this is that push. Gen Atlas has just launched all three of them straight to the top of my backlog. That list is already enormous, and somehow he just jumped the queue. And that's because Gen Atlas looks extraordinary. It's a post-apocalyptic world with towering mechanical giants that you can climb all over. The same atmosphere of scale and quiet and loneliness that Ueda does better than anyone. I've almost no idea what the story's gonna be, and somehow that makes me more interested instead of less. We're so back. Until we're not. Assassin's Creed. Here we go. Anyone who spent time around this channel, or back in the Twitch days, will know that the AC franchise and I have a history. Not a clean relationship by any means. It went from a love letter to a restraining order, but it's one that I've broken many more times than I'd like to admit. But then there's Black Flag. And I mean specifically Black Flag. That's top of the pile for me. Maybe top two, depending on how you slice the Ezio trilogy. Edward Kenway is one of the best protagonists the series has ever had. The naval combat remains some of the most genuinely fun gameplay Ubisoft have ever put out. And the story does things that the series has never quite managed to recapture since. So with the reveal of Resynced, I was immediately taken in. Of course I was. An excuse to go back through that story with a visual overhaul, that's enticing. And the visuals do look genuinely gorgeous. The one good thing about Ubisoft, for all their flaws, and there are many, their environments have always been stunning. And the new engine makes the seas and the cities look extraordinary, and it seems they've put genuine work into making it effective and also something that is faithful from the design standpoint. But, as is often the case with Ubisoft, I've concerns. Where I start to worry is the traversal. Old Assassin's Creed games made parkour feel like solving a puzzle as fast as you could, or efficiently as you could. Every wall and ledge was an option. Every rooftop the eureka to the next stage. All these newer ones have felt like pushing a stick forward toward a marker, and not much more than that. From what's been shown, the movement skeleton feels like it's the same one from Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Shadows, and slightly less so, but still there in Mirage. I despise this system of traversal. There's no feeling or momentum in it. And Ubisoft say they've reworked the parkour with back and side eject, smoother movement, enhanced traversal. On paper, it's exactly what any AC fan would want. But I need it to feel it before I believe it. Fancy patch notes aren't going to save movement that just doesn't feel right. Combat, I'm a little bit more optimistic about. It's a fully reworked system. Edward just sort of stands there and calmly aura farms when he's not directly engaging or being engaged by an enemy. It looks genuinely interesting, and it seems to be more mechanically involved than the original, looking more akin to Unity's deliberate system of parries and breaking guards in how it operates compared to the older games, compared to the other games on the Anvil engine that utilize the hitboxy button mashing version of combat. Stuff like the power indicators are blinding by default, which apparently you can adjust in settings, but why was this ever considered a sensible starting point is beyond me. It makes it look more like a mobile game than a AAA release. And then they have story editions. Like, I want these to work. New content for Blackbeard and our boy Steve Bonnet, I want that to feel like it belongs here. But from the footage they've released so far, I'm really not hopeful on that front. We'll see. I generally want this to be great, or at least not ruin another one of my darlings. And God knows that Ubisoft need a fucking win. But while we're talking about Assassin's Creed, and while we're talking about people who can understand that franchise and what it's supposed to be at its core, there's someone else we need to talk about. Patrice Desilets created Assassin's Creed, the original game, the philosophical coherence of it, the brotherhood and what it stood for, the historical grounding, the sense that you were moving through a world rather than a level. That was his vision. He left Ubisoft a while back under not really great terms, and he got a new project at his job at THQ, 1666 Amsterdam, a game set in the Dutch Golden Age. THQ went bankrupt, and Ubisoft acquired the studio that Desilets was working at. Ubisoft then cancelled the project and booted him out the door. He wasn't happy about it, so he took them to court over it, eventually settled, and he got his game back. And here's the thing I sort of can't stop thinking about. Ubisoft are currently developing Assassin's Creed Decay, which is a game set in early modern Europe with a dark tone, occult mystery, historical setting. And I'm not saying one exists because of the other, but when the man who created your biggest franchise is coming back with a historical occult project that Ubisoft once could at least have access to, it's just a bit impossible to ignore the similarities. But Patrice's game is happening. They even have a prologue on Steam, which I've played, and I highly recommend you do too. But what's it actually like? It opens in the witchcraft. Immediately, the atmosphere is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It's genuinely and properly atmospheric. Then it does something I didn't expect. it cuts to a modern day section. And my immediate thought as a recovering AC obsessive was, are we doing this again? Is this going to look back? Is this a past and present structure like the early Assassin's Creed games? Because if so, it's a very deliberate choice from a very specific man. But here's the thing. If you go back to Patrice's original vision for Assassin's Creed before Ubisoft stretched it into a decade of annual releases and progressively worse systems, the long-term plan was for our boy Desmond to eventually cross into the past for real, not watch it through the machine of the Animus. Actually go there, as it were. That idea never made it into the games the way he intended, and so watching him play with time, memory, and crossing between eras here in his own game on his own terms, I really hope that's the same thread, because I'd love for him to finally get to tell that story or some version of it. And I mean, don't quote me on the exact connection, but the fascination is unmistakably his. And not everything's perfect within the demo. The investigative stuff in the intro is a little rushed, sort of like God of War and every companion telling you what you need to do. The professor's delivery really shows that. But I genuinely like the puzzle conceit underneath it. The music is great throughout, and the twist with the dad landed better than I had any right to, honestly. The way items drop out of search points does feel a bit budget, a bit early access, but that's exactly the kind of thing. Early access exists to sand down in time, so I'm not going to hold that or any of the technical withholdings against the game. And then it leans all the way into its own strangeness. Like, bloody hell, at one point this game is just like Stray. You are playing as a cat fully mechanically. And the hook of the prologue is, for anyone that hasn't played it and didn't stop this video to play it, which you should do, quick warning, do it. You play in the modern day as the daughter of a man who gets turned into a cat and sent back from 1999 back to 6066 to serve a witch. Like, I mean, look at these numbers. Come on, bro. And we then play as the witch, as well as the cat through the actual game. It's an absolutely wild premise I didn't see coming. It's so confidently weird that I was completely on board. So here's where I land. I was interested before when I watched the trailer. After the prologue, I am pumped. It's atmospheric, it's intriguing, it nearly jump scared me multiple times. The mystery is palpable in a way very few games manage to be in their opening hour. But more than any of that, it feels like Assassin's Creed did back in those early days. Not the parkour or the hidden blades, but the feeling of it. The sense of a coherent world with a real idea behind it. The way they edit it together. The holding a mystery just out of reach, trusting you to try and lean in. Ubisoft spent 15 years slowly losing that feeling. And the man who created that franchise has just bottled it again in a game about a witch and a cat that they once tried to take away from him. Welcome back, Patrice. We missed you. Now, where's Ancestors 2, you mother... Right, that was the heavy stuff. The games I had to sit with and think about. This next lot is different. These are the ones I'm just plain excited for. Less substance to discuss, but very much still cool looking. Starting with one I've been waiting on for years. Oh, we're so back. I love Control. The way it took the SCP framework and made it entirely its own thing. The esoteric storytelling, the way the Otis House just does not care about explaining itself to you. The fact that it shares a universe with Alan Wake is one of the best pieces of shared world building in recent games. Resonant looks like it's keeping all of that. The labyrinthine structure of the world, the paranatural horror, the sense that you're operating in something you don't fully comprehend and have no hope to. What's changed though is the combat, which looks a lot more melee orientated with bigger environments, wider world to explore, and the protagonist now is no longer Jesse, it is Dylan, her brother, who got thoroughly wrecked by the hiss in the first game. So we get to now watch how that experience shaped him, how he transitions into the hero of this story. I just can't wait. Remedy on form is one of the best things in this damn industry. I've held off on Fable for a long time. It was never a deliberate decision, I just never got around to it. Watching Fishy's videos on the series is genuinely what made me want to, which I'll admit freely and without shame. The trailers for Fable up until now have been leaning so hard into the comedy that I was starting to wonder if Playground were going for something too light to actually land dramatically, or making a party of itself like Saints Row ended up being. This trailer seemed to answer that though. This new antagonist looks fantastic. A former pupil turned towards darkness in a way that feels personal and earned, as well as, for longtime fans, a Jack of Blades teaser at the end as a returning villain. The whole thing gives me strong Overlord energy, and if you remember that game, good on you. Can't wait, and I really need to go play our first 3 games. State of Decay 1 and 2 did something the zombie genre almost never bothers with. They make you care about the survivors as individuals. They're not set characters with scripted arcs. They're just a group of people that you found, kept alive, and grown attached to, and occasionally had to watch die stupidly. The interpersonal drama, the methodical clearing of houses, the base building, it had a texture to it that felt genuinely lived in. So now we get to see State of Decay 3 finally get a real gameplay trailer, and that's very encouraging. Everything looks like it's been meaningfully scaled up. The question for me is whether it still feels as free and unscripted as the first 2, that feeling of consequence with the cutscenes. If it keeps that, it's going to be something special. A first-person Souls-like. My first reaction to Valor Mortis was genuinely like, how are you going to make this work? I'm not sure how they are, even with what we've seen, but it looks intriguing in a very grotesque kind of way. The Napoleonic setting is doing a lot of heavy lifting for me, with that historical grounding in games being something that's always going to get me. It also comes from the Ghost Runner devs, which, if they can apply that same fluidity to something this tonally different, it's going to be something very interesting. Waiting by the bonfire for this one.
You ever heard of the Midnight Channel?
Persona! I came to Persona late. Persona 3 Reload was my entry point, and very quickly I also ended up with a key for Metaphor Refantatio shortly after. Videos for that still coming in, I know. And I've been figuring out the right way into Persona 4 and 5 ever since. Reese told me to just jump straight to 5, but that never quite sat right with me, even if they're technically disconnected. I like going in order in these things. Persona 4 Revival in the updated style, presumably with the quality of life improvements from Reload. That right there is a seamless on-ramp that I'm very, very much here for. And then we get Persona 6 in the same showcase. Green color palette this time with a cult focus and a much darker tone from the looks of it. I did not expect Atlas to give 2 Persona games space in that same showcase, but the teaser alone had me there. I really like the idea of Persona going a lot more cult focused in its antagonist, and it sounds like exactly the kind of direction that the series can absorb and thrive in. Insomniac's Wolverine looks clean. A weird thing to say about a game where you're tearing through people with adamantium claws. It's got heavy Spider-Man energy despite the added gore and violence. The movement does look fluid, the combat is conceptually familiar, the team-up mechanics are right there. It's weird seeing Jean Grey lobby up enemies for Logan to shish kebab. It's none of that's a bad thing, and anyone who's played the Spider-Man games will feel immediately at home here, I think. But it looks so clean. What I really appreciate is the way they've made it linear. I did have a big worry that Wolverine in open world was going to be what we were getting here. Madripoor is not somewhere you explore by fast traveling in between collectibles. So the linearity here suits the character. I think it's going to be a good one. But maybe throw some mud on it first so it looks a little bit closer to X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Wow. This is Japan.
RGG Studio have this incredible catalogue that I've never probably broken into, because at a certain point the Yakuza series has so much history that jumping in midstream to it feels like showing up to season 7 of a show where everyone else has been watching from the start. So the fact that this is an RGG game that doesn't carry that depth in the lore, with a new setting, new characters, and a clean entry point, is exactly what I need from them to experience their classic style in a game. But we have Tupac in this game. Snoop Dogg came on stage at Summer Games Fest to show that off. Genuinely don't know whether it's inspired, it's cursed, or a little bit of both. Despite limited information and only a trailer to go off of, Clutch is one of those things from this week I kept coming back to in my head. It's a narrative-heavy driving game from ex-Forza devs. That feels like it's a gap that nobody's filling in right now. Forza Horizon 6 is fantastic to just exist in, but I've got hundreds of cars I'll never drive, and a story so boilerplate it could have been generated by AI. If the ex-Forza pedigree means the same quality of driving, environments, and car feel, but then with a narrative through line that makes it actually worth caring about, that could be genuinely something special. Though knowing driving games, I'll probably still have 726,534 cars within the first hour. The moment I heard the TMNT trill in the background, I was locked into this one. The last Ronin comic is exactly the kind of material that works for a dark, gritty adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You've got one turtle left, the weight of everyone he's lost, and New York gone to absolute hell. And the fact that this is another project that's come back from the dead. It was announced originally in 2023 with Black Forest Games, completely fell silent for years, with everyone just assuming it was gone. And we now have it back with Platinum Games attached. The developer swap is a reason to be more excited, not less. I really can't wait for that visceral combat, for weight. I need all 4 sets of weapons doing exactly what they were built to do with a Ghost of Tsushima or Yote style system. I'm very, very here for it. Right, how many's left? Fuck. Okay. Screw it. Speedrun time. Wolf Among Us 2. Out of development hell and a remastered bit. Thank God we've got Big back about damn time. Cinema repositions the intimate franchise as an open world action art adventure. And it's really risky, but Ninja Fury have earned the benefit of the doubt, curious to see if they can pull it off. Gears of War E-Day. It's a prequel set on the day the logo was first emerged. Yes, Andrew, we can co-op it together. An Xbox console exclusive though? Star Wars Galactic Racer. Now this is what I call pod racing. Woo! October 6th, Resonance and Plague Tales Legacy. A shift to combat heavy gameplay in a series built on stealth and puzzles is a bold creative plot for a prequel. Whether that's earned or not is the perfect excuse to finally get free Innocence and Requiem for me. August 27th. Blood Message, single player, tank dynasty, companion driven narrative. Gives real Uncharted vibes. Crazy Taxi's fucking back. 5 cities, the offspring, chaos all around. It's the whole pitch. It is all it ever needed to be. Kamuri. On the unseen, visually stunning co-op yokai hunting from someone whose track record earns the attention. Now I just need to convince the boys to play it. Join us. Build Doomsday Call, Dark Comedy Co-op, finally some good friend slot, March 2027. Beast of Reincarnation, post-apocalyptic Japan, ARPG from the Pokemon studio that actually looks impressive for once. August 4th. Stuntman Hollywood, more car games. Always more car games. Plus Fast and Furious reference. Phantom Blade Zero, one of the most visually beautiful things I've seen. One of the most visually beautiful things I've seen with an extraordinary art style. The combat looks fantastic. No date for it yet, but I'll wait as long as it takes. It's comedy has Top Gun energy, and if it doesn't make me physically sick to play, I'm absolutely on it for October 2nd. Crossfire had a genre reinventing cover system claim that got a lot of clowning online, and fair enough, but watching the actual footage, it looks like a solid first person tactical shooter might actually be worth a look. And that's only the fucking stuff I like. So that was the week. It felt like I barely scratched the surface of what was shown. The games industry feels like it's thriving right now in a way that it hasn't in a while. Nowhere was that more clear than the Xbox showcase. It was just banger after banger in a way Microsoft haven't managed to do in years. Despite COD as a final reveal, like, guys, the problem as always is time. There are only so many hours in a day, and the list just keeps getting longer. And I'll be honest, I'm making videos again with less free time than I've ever had. The games I want to play outpace the hours I have to play them by a distance that only seems to be growing. The backlog isn't just back, it's become its own survival game. And actually, someone made that game, literally. It's called Game Quest, the Backlog Battle. It's coming to early access this year, and it's going to destroy me personally when I play it. You should check it out on Steam. Somehow, though, despite that, this is so exciting. The abundance is real. The only question is how you navigate it. But right, I gotta go to sleep after all that. Hope you enjoyed. You know what to do. Peace.